The Rams made a very tough decision this offseason that could lead to them winning a Super Bowl. How will the wide receivers room shake out? Who's making the team? Where the position battles? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube. We're trying to get to 18,000 subs before training camp. So do us a huge favor, join the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you're already a subscriber, you want to support the channel, hit the like button, drop a comment. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, chat sports, Bleacher Report. And today we've got back the great Travis Rogers, the host of Locked On Dodgers, Locked On Rams, of course, Travis and DeMarco on ESPN Radio. He's entering your 11th season as the Rams post-game show host. That's got to feel kind of wild, but he's back, and we got a big show for you today. We're diving into some of these training camp storylines, the wide receiver room, who could get cut, what are those battles to watch. We're talking about the running backs room. So, Travis, before we get into it, though, we talk about these new uniforms. The Chargers, they dropped some new uniforms, and Big Wit, he quote tweeted a picture of Justin Herbert in the yellow ones and said, "Oh, they did this to me. They had me looking like Big Bird." I mean, what are your thoughts on these new Charger uniforms and Big Wit's? It felt like a little jab there.
It did. You know, and I know, and anybody that's an everydayer here at Locked On Rams knows that you and I love to talk about some uniforms here and there. We're big uniform guys. A monochromatic uniform is never going to work for me. I get it. It's kind of a color rush thing, a Thursday night thing. I know that the Rams had, this version of the LA Rams had an iconic moment on Monday night in those all yellow things that we've seen before. But yeah, man, no, you can miss me with the Big Bird ones. I'm with Whitworth.
Yeah, there's really no. I mean, I guess the all red Chiefs is like kind of acceptable because it feels like it's kind of what they wear, but. Yeah. I'm with you on that one. Now, speaking of uniforms, Cooper Kupp in the Seahawks uniform, it's definitely it's definitely a sore sight. I mean, what do you think of this look of? I got a picture here for my podcast listeners. Here's Cooper Kupp in the Seahawks.
There's a little bit. I mean, I don't know if this is like he's going for a Seattle mid-90s grunge feel with the haircut.
You're probably right there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on there. There's a little bit of a beach vibe in there, but cutting the hair the way he did, cutting the beard a lot shorter makes him look a little bit younger. And it's weird, man. Seeing him in that uniform is going to take some getting used to. And quite frankly, maybe we'll never get used to it. That in your mind's eye, you're always going to remember him in Rams colors and that Seahawk green and navy and whatever else they got going on up there. Just doesn't look right. I think they made the right move. I would rather have Davante Adams at this point in their respective careers, but it is very odd seeing Cooper Kupp in a Seahawks uniform.
Yeah, I'll just be honest. I hate everything about it. I hate the Seahawks uniform. I mean, the hair, I'm not a guy to criticize hair. You know what I'm saying? I think any hair is good hair.
Yeah,
but,
right.
I look at the Don Corleone. I think of the Don Corleone.
Cobain vibe there. A little. It's not quite as long.
Until you pointed it out, I didn't think that. But now that you point out, I think you're totally onto something. Yeah. It definitely gives that mid-90s grunge. But to me, it's the Don Corleone. The Don Corleone. They massacre my boy. They massacre my boy. What did they do to him? But I think that's a good jumping off point in talking about the wide receiver room. Is Davante Adams at this stage of his career, I think helps the Rams get to a Super Bowl more than Cooper Kupp does. So I think the interesting thing to look at is the Rams were going to move off of Cooper Kupp no matter what, just because of how much they were going to have to pay him. And there was no guarantee that they were going to replace him with a top 5 or 10 receiver. Right. But not only do you move off of Cooper Kupp, you replace him in this offense with Davante Adams, who I think has more left in the tank at this stage of his career. I will be rooting for Cooper Kupp. I hope he has a 1,500-yard season and 10 touchdowns, but I hope the Seahawks go 3-14 while he does that. But I do think that that's kind of big picture why this feels like such a move that would help this team in such a big way.
Yeah, I do too. I just think that not only do I agree with what you said, that he's got a little bit more gas left in the tank than I think that Kupp does. Kupp has had trouble staying on the field for the last several seasons. I think that's a big part of it. But I think for me, the number one thing that I like about Adams relative to Kupp is Kupp and Nakua felt redundant. They do a lot of the same things. They're both really good players, and Puka's obviously entering the prime of his career. Cooper Kupp is exiting the prime of his career, but what you ask of them is very similar. They're both big, strong, physical, tough wide receivers. They're gonna hammer you along the way. Davante Adams is a different type of wide receiver. Davante Adams is not that. Davante Adams is, quite frankly, he's Davante Adams. It's just a totally different type of wide receiver. And I think you're going to be able to do some different things with Adams than you're going to be able to do with Kupp. Nakua, I think, is probably your number one guy, and Adams is probably number 1A. We'll see how the rest of that room shakes out. I know that we want to talk about that going forward, but I like where that position group is. I really do. I think they got two really good guys. We'll see what Ferguson's able to do at the tight end. I know that, I'm not the world's biggest Tutu Atwell fan, but they decided to re-sign him. He's coming back as well. So they've got some options at that position. I think they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and you look at this room as a whole, the locks are pretty obvious in this one. Puka Nakua, Davante Adams, Tutu Atwell, you bring back on a $10 million contract. Sean McVay is talking about wanting to scheme around him more this year. And I think Jordan Whittington, it's safe to say that he's a lock after what he did last season when Puka was out, a 6th-round pick that looks like a big physical receiver, not necessarily in height, just kind of what he's able to do with his physicality and kind of what the Rams look for at that position, kind of doing the dirty work, blocking, some special teams mixed in there. But I think those are the 4 locks. But I also think that there could be some competition in there with a 7th-round pick. And we're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Rams.
Ever wish that managing your money felt a little bit easier? With Monarch Money, it absolutely can. So whether you're growing your savings or planning that big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own little personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. In Monarch Money, it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, so you can track all of your accounts, your investments, and spending in just one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And one of the things that I really like about Monarch Money is all of a sudden, when you start tracking these things, you actually can kind of put a number on what it is that you're spending things on, maybe things that you haven't really thought of and adding up. Things like, how often are you ordering takeout? How many different subscriptions do you have? When you see that number put together, it can kind of be an eye-opening moment. If you have finances that are involved with more than one person, you got a partner, you got a wife, you got a husband, or whatever it may be, you got all of you people looking at the same thing, it is a big deal. And of course, when you're setting those goals, it's a great way to see that number get bigger and bigger and whether or not you are on track. So why not take control of your finances with Monarch Money? Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. Now is the time to join, though. If you're not in that Everyday Listeners Club, now is the time to join. Training camp is beginning very quickly here. July 24th, can't get here soon enough. So, hey, this is the journey. Join the Everyday Listeners Club, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. So, yeah, Travis, that was quite a cliffhanger there to end the first segment. And really, that was because I'm not really sure how many minutes that first segment was since we recorded a little after. So, just wanted to play it safe on that one.
You're good. But I got the numbers. We can talk later.
Okay, sounds great. Now, the receiver we're talking about in the 7th round is Kanata Mumfield out of Pitt. And this is a very interesting player. The more you look into his time at Pitt and the reasons why he fell in the draft, mean, a lot had to do with, look, Pitt did not have a quarterback that could throw for over 30 yards. And you go back and you watch some of his highlights and the athleticism that he displayed, his ability to run all the routes on that route tree, the fact that he's got strong hands, he's a kind of prototypical Rams receiver in a lot of different ways. I also, too, I look at things that some other people don't look at when it comes to making this team. He's been included in a lot of these social media things that the Rams have done this offseason. They did a bit where they were like building a Ram with Legos and things like that. You don't do that to dudes you're going to cut early on training camp, right? You don't do it to the guys that you don't think. That's not the end all be all. It's a very, very small piece of it. But it just feels like internally, this is not your typical 7th round pick. This is just going to be an afterthought.
No, I think you are spot on to it. If there's a way to read tea leaves, I think that's a really good way to do it, is how often are they using him in things that you could choose not to and no one would notice, right? If he's not showing up and stuff like that, no one's going, where is he? It's not like if all of a sudden Kyren Williams was not showing up in any sort of Rams, social media things or community things, you'd be like, well, this is kind of weird. Are they actually going to re-sign him? But the opposite's true too. If all of a sudden somebody that isn't a part of this is involved in it quite a bit, I think you can put a little bit of stock in that. I think when it comes down to who's going to make the team in that last wide receiver slot, it may not be the sexiest thing in the world, D-Mac, and it may not be the thing that we're going to spend every Monday for 17 weeks during the regular season breaking down and saying this is why, this is why not. Who's a better special teams player? If you are the 5th wide receiver on a football team, you're going to have to play special teams, and you're going to have to be good at special teams. We talk about how important it is of, just not giving up big plays. You don't have to score a bunch of touchdowns. You don't have to block a ton of field goals or punt attempts. But what you can't do is give up big plays. You got to cover punts. You got to cover kicks. You got to find a way to do that. And the way that those guys on the wide receiver depth chart, the running back depth chart, the further down the depth chart you get at those positions, those guys have to be effective in special teams. And I think that's probably the biggest differentiator on who makes it and who doesn't, is who's a better teams player. Because everything else being equal, they're going to take the guy that's better at teams.
Yeah, with Mumfield, he's not a guy that has this explosive speed. I mean, a 4.59 40 at the NFL scouting combine, a 1.54 10-yard split, but it's in the slot. And when you're in the slot and a guy that can create separation, play on the inside and the outside, and he's known as a tough dude. I mean, one of the scouting reports straight up says he's tough as F, right? I mean, that just screams Rams receiver to me. And they've been desperate for a guy that you can actually depend on that can create separation down the field with some speed and athleticism. We've heard for years that Tutu Atwell could be that guy. If he's going to be that guy, it's probably not going to be from the slot, right? And I think that's what you could get with Mumfield, and that's why he's such an intriguing player.
I go around and around with DeMarco on my radio show every day, 9 to noon on ESPN 710. And DeMarco's a big fan of Tutus. And he thinks that it's coming, that there's going to be a breakout moment for Tutu Atwell where he becomes a big part of the offense. And I hope he's right. This is one of these examples of me hoping that what I'm seeing is not what's actually happening, and what I feel is not actually what's happening. But I agree with you, D-Mac, that Tutu Atwell's not going to have a huge impact in the slot. He's just not a physical enough guy to kind of thrive in that role in the middle of the field there. It does not seem like the place where you want to put Tutu Atwell, but I just don't know where that spot is. I mean, this is not like he just got here or his second year. He's been here for a while, and it really has not popped for him. I hope that it's around the corner, but he's going to make the team, obviously. They just gave him that $10 million deal, and he'll be a part of what they're doing. But I would love to eat my words about Atwell and say, you know what, that guy's making a huge impact on what they're doing week in and week out.
Yeah, I think, honestly, for me, you mentioned the key thing for me when it comes to Tutu Atwell in the big 2025. A lot of people call it the big 2025 for some reason. I don't know why, but people have been saying that, so I'm going to do it.
Sounds good.
Is the fact that they did give him $10 million. And when you give someone $10 million, you're going to prioritize him more. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of discussion about what Tutu has done or hasn't done since they picked him in the second round. But last year, it was a career year for him. I mean, 42 catches, that was a career high. Receiving yards, 562 yards, that was a career high. But I don't necessarily look at the counting stats with him, because I look at the opportunities and how much he made out of those opportunities. And he also had a 67.7% catch rate on in 9.1 yards per target. So when you kind of look at that, basically what the numbers tell you on Tutu Atwell is like, hey, if you fed me more, I'd be able to produce more. Now, to do that in an offense that has Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, two guys that could easily get 1,000+ yard seasons, and a Terrence Ferguson, who I think after a couple weeks of the year, after he's playing behind Tyler Higbee and kind of knows the offense, if they like what they see from Ferguson, I don't think they're going to be afraid to use him early on. It just there could be a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. And I think that's a good problem to have.
And we haven't talked about Kyren Williams, right? He's another one that they throw him the ball. They're obviously going to feed him carries along the way. And I couldn't agree with you more about Ferguson. I think that one of the things that the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams, have not been able to unlock with Sean McVay is big time production from the tight end. We've seen moments, right? Like Tyler Higbee has had moments where he is a huge impact, and he's a tough physical guy, and I really like having him on the team. I think he's useful, but he's not really a weapon in the passing game usually. We saw some moments from Gerald Everett when he was on the Rams where he would have some big games, and they would use him to kind of get down the field a little bit. He was a little bit more of a pass-catching weapon along the way. But Ferguson feels like the best version of this, a guy that they're going to really be able to use offensively, that isn't just a sixth offensive lineman, that's somebody that once he gets a feel for what they're doing offensively, and I've had a lot of people tell me that other than quarterback, the position that is the toughest position to learn in a Sean McVay offense is tight end. And the quicker he's up to speed on that, the quicker that Stafford can trust him, the quicker that McVay can trust him, the more I think you're going to see the ball thrown his way. And like you just mentioned, that's one more mouth to feed along the way. And if he's getting, even if it's just 3 or 4 balls a game, that's a big difference in the grand scheme of things going to the tight end. And I don't think they're going to stop throwing it to Puka. I don't think you're going to stop throwing it to Devontae Adams. I don't think you're going to stop giving it to Kyren Williams. I think that that next guy on the depth chart, whether that's Tutu or Whittington or whoever it is, that's where those throws and opportunities are going to come from. And I think that the opportunities for Ferguson are far greater than whoever slides into that third wide receiver role.
I agree with you there for sure. I think when you look at the third wide receiver, it's going to be Tutu to start no matter what. I mean, barring a lot of things, injury or just underperformance, which I don't think is the case. I think it's really interesting. Matthew Stafford has said that Tutu Atwell is one of the brightest, smartest football players that he's seen. I think that means something to me. By the look on your face, doesn't mean that much to you. But
well, it's not that I don't believe he's not a smart football player. If they say so, I believe that they're telling the truth. I believe that he's probably I'm tired of people telling me of what he can be and what he is. He's been here for a while. He hasn't had an impact on the team. At some point, you are what your numbers say you are. You are what the coach uses you as. If they were throwing him the ball a lot, that means they trust him. That means that he's getting open. That means that they're trying to run it through him because they believe that. They're telling me he's good, but they never force the ball to him. They never run things through him. They'll take some shots down the field. I know that he's got that speed, and that is something that you can't teach. That's something that's irreplaceable. But I get frustrated because this idea that, well, he might be this, he might be that. But this is his 4th or 5th year in the league. At some point, you have to do it rather than tell me that you might be able to do it or you can do it. You got to go out there and do it, and I haven't seen him do it yet.
Yeah, those are all fair takes on Tutu Atwell. I think that he understands what's at stake for him as far as his future goes in the National Football League, and I love players that enter those kind of make or break seasons just to truly see what they are. I think as far as overall intrigue about the wide receiver room, I mean, I really do think that if we're talking about Kanata Mumfield and it's late in camp, that he's done a lot of things right, and that it is a wide receiver 4 battle, which on the Rams doesn't really say that much, right? Because if guys are healthy, you're not going to see too much from your wide receiver 4. The on the bubble guys, Xavier Smith, Brent Covey, True Edwards, Mario Williams, Drake Stoops, Brennan Presley, a lot of Oklahoma Sooner love in here. You mentioned special teams. I mean, Xavier Smith has done some things for this organization. Brent Covey has done some things on a Pro Bowl level in his career. So I think that's an interesting one to watch. And I think that the real sleeper there is Mario Williams as far as kind of these later guys that can be a part of this room. But I think it's gone down to special teams and performance in the preseason.
Yeah, Covey's an interesting one. You and I are both old school Pac-12 guys, Pac-10 guys, and Covey at Utah was one of those guys that just absolutely terrorized the Oregon Ducks. I'm an Oregon Duck fan, and seeing him just do what he did to Oregon year after year, play after play. So he's got some ability for sure. Like you said, D-Mac, I think that, if we're really getting into the fourth and fifth, one of two things has happened. Everything has gone wrong or everything has gone right. You know what I mean? Like there really is no middle ground. That if all of a sudden we're like, hey, we can even throw the ball to this guy, that you got these giant leads where you got, Devontae and Puka Nacua are gotten their helmets off drinking Gatorade in the fourth quarter, or the opposite, where it's like, you guys are hurt, guys are missing time, guys are ineffective. It's either everything's great or everything's terrible. I don't think they're going to affect the middle all that much.
Absolutely. I think this time of year, people love talking about the end of the roster. So those are the end of the roster kind of names you need to know about. Yeah. But you just triggered me because you just said the word Pac-12. I told you a little bit about this before, but I used my All-Star. I use my All-Star game. For some reason, me showing my phone on this show is becoming a thing, but I use my All-Star game credential to sneak into SEC Media Day, and there's Paul Feinbaum. Yeah. I asked Paul Feinbaum about UCLA's chances to win the Big Ten, and before he answered, he said, "Oh, I forgot they were in the Big Ten." I'm like, those are fighting words. And then he said the chances aren't great. I mean, come on now.
Here's the thing.
Like he's not right, but I mean, I'm still offended.
There's material and there's jokes, and then he might have been telling you the truth.
Yeah,
that's the worst case scenario, is that he wasn't trying to be funny, that he literally forgot that the Bruins were in the Big Ten. Because look, the Bruins didn't have a good year last year, but they had a better year than I thought they would. So we can be cautiously optimistic.
I mean, the point is, I just wish the Pac-12 was still around.
Me too. The fact that Texas State is in the new Pac-12 with San Diego State, and that doesn't move the needle for you?
I mean, it's kind of like what is a Texas State? You know what I'm saying? Type thing. But the Beavers and the Cougars are still holding it down. The OG members.
They should play each other 9 times a year. They should have like a best of 9 situation for the Pac-12 championship. I would be 100% into that.
The Pac-12, man. It still hurts. But coming up next, we're going to continue our countdown on the most important Rams heading into the 2025 season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay, Travis, so we've been doing this countdown. We do it every year. Top 25 most important Rams heading into the season. Yesterday's episode, we did Kevin Dotson coming in at number 10. And my reasoning for Dotson coming in at 10 was almost because I think he's so reliable as a run blocker. He didn't miss a snap last year except for the last game of the season when they're resting their starters. So I didn't feel like I needed to put him higher on this list because it wasn't that big X factor. 9, I've got Steve Avila. I think Steve Avila is still in, hey, what am I mode as far as a pro player. There was so much promise his rookie year, still built on that his second year. But his second year, we kind of started talking more about the defensive young players, the Kobe Turners, the Jared Verse, the Byron Youngs, not as much Steve Avila. In 10 games, though, 19 pressures allowed, 3 sacks allowed, 50.6 pass. I mean, a 50.6 pass blocking grade is not great. A 70.6 run blocking grade isn't great. The reason I have him as number 9 is because if he can realize that potential, I think he can go a long way to solidifying this offensive line, not just for this year, but for the future.
I think what's interesting with Avila is which of these two guys is he going to be? Is he going to be the guy that in his rookie season, and by the way, I absolutely love this guy. I've gotten a chance to spend some time with him and talk with him a bunch of times. He is a terrific guy, a really good guy, a hardworking guy, a sincere guy, and I'm rooting for him. Let me just be crystal clear. I am a huge fan of his. But year one, he played every snap, D-Mac. He didn't come off the field once. He played every single offensive snap of that entire season as a rookie. And that's an extraordinary accomplishment. Last year, he got hurt right off the jump against Detroit. He struggled to get back in the starting lineup. And like you just laid out there a second ago, he had a decent year. It quite frankly was a bit of a mixed bag. It was not the building on that year one. Now, could have been injury related. I was talking with him at the Rams Revealed a month or so ago, and he said it was really the first time in his life he'd ever gotten hurt and missed time. And so he was learning how deal with that, learning how to play with that. I think that's part of it. He is incredibly talented. He's incredibly physical. He's strong. He's athletic. I'm really high on him, but I think you're right. If he can be the guy that we saw in his rookie year and just he doesn't have to be an all pro. He just needs to be consistent. He just needs to be a guy that you can rely on. They get the same performance, day after day, week after week, month after month. We've talked about this on Locked On Rams. I know that we talk about this when you and I just kind of BS about the Dodgers and whatnot. Coaches and managers like knowing what they're going to get, even if it's not A+ stuff. If I know every time I put you out there, you're going to give me a B-, they'll use you all day long, every single time, because they know what positions to put you in. They know what positions not to put you in, and they know exactly what you're going to bring to the table week in and week out. And that's what we got to figure out with Steve Avila, that what exactly can we count on every single week? And once we know that, I think they're going to be in great shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. Players hate to blame things on injury. They hate to blame things on injuries because these guys are all nicked up to varying degrees throughout the season, even if they're not missing time. But the truth of the matter is when he missed time due to that MCL injury, where he missed 7 games, in those 7 games, Matthew Stafford was sacked 15 times. In the first 4 games without Avila, he was sacked 11 times. If that doesn't prove his importance to this team, I don't know what else does, because that is the most important thing, is keeping Matthew Stafford vertical. And I think there's no doubt about it. Like, his floor is an average left guard. I think even right now he's an above average left guard. But when he got his career started, it looked like he was going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, to make some all pros. The way that he can move at that size, I still think the sky's the limit for this guy.
I do too. He's got everything that you could ever ask for in a player. He's got the want, he's got the physical, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism. He loves to play football. Like, listening to him talk about it, this is not just the thing that he does, but it's the thing that he loves to do as well. And you said it a second ago, Doug, and I, the list of most important players, we can go up and down it, but the most important group, we know that young defense is going to be really good. We know Matthew Stafford's going to be Stafford. We just spent some time talking about the wide receiver group. If those 5 guys up front are somewhere between pretty good to very good, look out, because all that other stuff is going to go based on that. If that offensive line is, I don't know, man, or you get injuries and you're playing a bunch of backups, you're playing guys out of their primary positions, then all of a sudden, I don't care how good Matthew Stafford is. I don't care how good Devontae Adams is. I don't care how good Jared Verse is. If you can't protect your quarterback, it doesn't matter what else is happening. So I'm with you. Those 5 guys up front, Dotson, Avila, Havenstein, Coleman Shelton's back, Alark Jackson, obviously dealing with the blood clot issues. There's a lot going on in there, but if those guys are good, everything else falls into place.
Yeah, that's another reason why it's so important with the situation with Alaric Jackson and Dedich and Bruss were bad in replacing him last year, so he's going to be huge. By the way, did you ever hear him tell that story how he got kicked off a roller coaster because he was so big? No. He was in high school, I believe, or at TCU. He was so big they didn't ride a roller coaster. That's to me, I think it's kind of like I would want to be that dude. You know what I'm saying?
So I just, if you're watching on YouTube, maybe you can tell, maybe you can, I don't know. Maybe you've seen me around town or whatever. I'm a relatively tall person. I'm about 6'3". I am north of 210 pounds. Okay. I'm not a small guy. I stood and interviewed KD and Steve Avila back to back at the Rams Revealed. I felt like I was in the 3rd grade. Like, it's just, they are massive individuals, and they make you feel it's very rare where I feel very small and just slight. And both of those guys felt like they could just pick you up and throw you across the room if they wanted to do it.
Big dudes. By the way, you see they're shutting down Six Flags in Santa Clara. I didn't even know there was a Six Flags in Santa Clara. Did you?
I not only did I know, I have been. My Aunt Carol lives up in the Bay Area. When I was a kid, she used to take us over. I used to go over there and hate watch the Giants. She'd take me to a Giants game during the summer, and then we'd go to, I think it was called Great America at the time. And I've been. It's no
Apparently
Disney.
It's closing. I got clickbaited into thinking it was Magic Mountain was closing, but actually that's closing. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's like a JV Magic Mountain.
Are you a Magic Mountain guy at all, or?
So I lived in Santa Clarita for a few years. All my kids were born up in that part of town. So I haven't been in a long time, but I'll get on a Viper or a Goliath or whatever those things are called. Yeah, I'll mess with a roller coaster.
No, Goliath goes hard. I remember when I was like in like first grade or something when Batman first
Oh yeah.
opened, and I waited the whole like 2 hours, and then I wussed out at the front.
Oh no.
Like I can remember like my cousins were there, like they still make fun of me about it. Like I had to go through. Imagine going through a long exit of a ride, but you didn't ride
You
it.
never
And then
rode
my
it.
mom's
Yeah.
there, like, how was it? You know what I mean?
Ask them. I didn't get on. Yeah.
So,
No,
like,
the best one there is the Superman ride. I still love that.
the Superman's great. They totally changed it up too, where you're like on the outside. The original Superman, you're like going up. You know, now it's like you like do this hanging thing. It's crazy stuff for sure. But yeah, it is not that one closing. That one's still hopefully going strong. But
for sure.
that's gonna do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.